Two Chunin, Izumo, and Kotetsu sat in the booth near the village gate. Like always, nothing was happening, so Kotetsu was dozing off. Izumo lazily looked down the path leading to the village. Quite often he found himself staring down the path, sometimes hoping for something to happen. Off in the distance, he saw what he could only perceive as a blur. As the blur got closer, he blinked a few times to make sure he was not dreaming. "Kotetsu, you might want to see this." Kotetsu groaned, but looked up to see where Izumo was pointing. Coming from the horizon, two blurs could be seen running at high speeds towards the village gates. Within a few seconds, their figures could be defined. On the left, Naruto was running as fast as he could with his current gravity seal level of 16. On the right, Jiraiya was running at his max speed, ahead of Naruto, since he didn't have seals of his own. The two sped past Izumo and Kotetsu, who gawked at the display of speed. Naruto fell to the ground exhausted. "No fair, you didn't give me time to disable my seals." Jiraiya laughed. "That's because I knew I would lose the moment you fully removed them. I really ought to start using them myself." "Your old bones couldn't make it past level 3, old friend." The guards turned to see the legendary Tsunade standing beside Hinata, both fainting soon after. Naruto grinned as he saw their faces. "You two gonna continue gawking? Or are you going to welcome us back?" "Yeah, sorry," Izumo scratched his head. "Welcome back, Lord Jiraiya, Lady Tsunade," he said, giving a slight bow alongside Kotetsu. Kotetsu stretched his arm out to the blonde. "We never did congratulate you two on your promotion." Naruto shook his hand. "Looks like I made it to Jonin before you. How does that make you feel?" Kotetsu gave him a blank stare. "I would have been fine if you at least made Chunin first. The last person I remember doing that was Itachi, and he even skipped the academy." "Trust me," Hinata said. "If we could have done it over again, we would have skipped as well. We at least could have gone straight to Chunin." "You guys can talk about your terrible academy life later," Jiraiya interrupted. "I am sure Tsunade wants to get to work right away." Tsunade groaned. "No time like the present." The group said their farewells to the gate guards and disappeared in a group body flicker, taking them outside the Hokage's office. Tsunade took in a deep breath and knocked on the wooden door. "Enter." Tsunade opened the door to see the tired, old face of Hiruzen Sarutobi, her sensei. His eyes still held years of wisdom, and the same caring gaze. His aged pipe sat within his small smile. The Hokage robes hung loosely over his slowly thinning body. Tsunade forced herself not to show emotion. She bowed. "It has been a long time, Lord Hokage." Tsunade felt someone bonk her on the head, making her jump back. Hiruzen pulled her in for a hug, startling her. "It is good to have you back, Tsunade." Tsunade let a tear roll down her cheek. She put her arms around her teacher, not saying a word. Naruto, Hinata, and Jiraiya watched the display of affection with happy faces. "I think we'll take our leave now," Hinata whispered. "We'll send our mission reports in tomorrow." Jiraiya nodded. The two left, and shortly after, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Hiruzen sat down to reminisce. After a few hours, they got to business. The female Sannin had a lot to do before she became the village's new leader. "First thing I'm going to do is go to the hospital and reorganize it. Their standards will not be up to my own." Hiruzen chuckled. "First and foremost, Tsunade would always be a medic ninja. After that, I suggest you meet with the council." Tsunade groaned. The council was the one thing she absolutely did not want to deal with. Decades of paperwork would be preferable over them. Hiruzen chuckled again. "I know, they can be troublesome. But if you ever happen to get on their bad side, just bring in Naruto. That manages to shut up the annoying members and get them off my back. Tsunade laughed. Sounds like him. After that, there will be some other meetings to attend, and a bit of initial paperwork. Within a week's time, you will be the 5th Hokage. Next day, Training Ground 7. Kiba ducked under a kick from Sakura. He jumped away and brought his hands together in the bird sign. Earth style, falling earth spears. Multiple spikes erupted from the ground, flying towards the pink-haired ninja. She channeled chakra to her feet and jumped high into the air. Lightning style, thunderbolt jutsu. A blue orb of lightning flew from her hands, destroying the spikes. She landed and had to immediately return to the defensive, as Kiba and Akamaru attacked her from both directions. Fang over Fang! Sakura narrowly avoided a direct hit. She threw a kunai with an explosive tag at the pair. The blast knocked them out of their technique. They readjusted in midair to land on their feet. As they did, their bodies froze. Kiba struggled to look down at the paralysis tags on the ground Sakura had placed earlier. Sakura smiled triumphantly. "When did you pick up sealing?" the annoyed Kiba asked. "A while back when Hinata created my water containment seals for me. I'm almost to level 2. Kiba sat down, nursing his muscles after the paralysis seals were removed. "Speaking of, how far have you been able to get in your training with water style?" Sakura sighed. "Not much. I learned 1 more D rank and 1 A rank. But I still can't create water with my chakra alone." Kiba chuckled. "I hear you. I only learned 2 earth jutsu, and I'm still working out the kinks with them." Hey, no need to beat yourselves up." The 2 Genin looked up to see their sensei standing in the trees above them. "You 2 have done quite well since the Chunin exams. I knew I made the right decision when I signed you up." "Even when we didn't get promoted?" Kiba questioned. "Most don't on their first attempt. Consider it a miracle you didn't die, considering what followed. You have grown stronger because of it. Think of it. Most ninja don't start using elemental chakra until they are Chunin. You and the rest of your peers are all above average shinobi. I have no doubt you will all ascend to new heights, possibly greater than my own." Kakashi blinked as he gained the memories of his shadow clone. "And Sasuke as well, of course. Despite his issues, he really is skilled." He waved. "Sorry, I gotta get back. Please, come enjoy the show." With that, Kakashi disappeared, leaving the 2 Genin who started walking towards the spot Kakashi and Sasuke were fighting. But, as with all fights with their teacher, it was more of him reading his Make-Out Paradise book while blocking all of his strikes. Sasuke managed to land a blow against Kakashi, who had dropped his guard while flipping the page of his book. The Uchiha's anger only rose when Kakashi turned into smoke. "Nice job, you landed a hit." Sasuke turned to see Kakashi standing a few feet away. "No more games," Kakashi said, placing his book in his pouch. "I'm gonna start trying now. Prepare yourself, Sasuke." Sasuke smirked inwardly. Finally, a chance to see how strong Kakashi truly is. If I can beat him, I am 1 step closer to Itachi. Oh, who am I kidding? Itachi's way stronger than Kakashi, and I can't even land a hit on the real one. Did my encounter with him the other day tell me nothing? Sasuke was forced out of his thoughts by his sensei throwing a shuriken that cut his arm. Sasuke's Sharingan opened, defending himself from an onslaught of taijutsu. Even with his eyes, he was lacking behind his teacher. The Uchiha went for a kick. Kakashi grabbed his leg. Sasuke pushed off the ground and aimed his other leg for his head. He swung his arm, planting an explosive tag on Kakashi's shoulder. He reached for a kunai with the other and swiped at his captive's wrist. Kakashi released him, exploding quickly after. Sasuke gritted his teeth. Kakashi had used the substitution jutsu with a log, the fragments falling to the ground. Sasuke whipped around and brought a hand to his mouth. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. Kakashi placed his palms on the ground, creating a large wall. The flames didn't destroy the wall, but did considerable damage. Kakashi heard the familiar chirping, looking up to see Sasuke, arm outstretched, Chidori crackling. Kakashi brought his hands together, but his hand signs were interrupted when he felt a pair of hands grab his ankles. He looked down to see the hands came from a hole in the ground. The Sasuke above him smirked. The smirk vanished quickly, seeing the bored expression on Kakashi's one visible eye. Kakashi proceeded to poof into smoke. Sasuke's clone was swiftly destroyed, the real one jumping from a spot in the ground. I never knew you learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Sasuke smirked. I took the liberty of copying it during my battle against your clone. I must thank you for that. Sasuke pulled out a scroll from his restrictive tuning vest, opening the scroll, channeling a sizable portion of his chakra through the seal. Multiple giant shuriken, better known as Demon Wind, or Fuma Shuriken, flew towards Kakashi. Kakashi weaved his way through the barrage, avoiding them all. He even plucked one mid-air and tossed it back at Sasuke with even greater speed. Sasuke ducked, the shuriken cutting off a few hairs from his head. The Uchiha yanked back the ninja wire he held, making the Fuma Shuriken Kakashi had avoided to begin flying back towards him. For once, Kakashi's eye widened. His hand lit up with blue lightning. Sasuke was confused on what his plans were, but prepared himself nonetheless. The Jonin focused the Chidori as much as he could, condensing it into a small orb. The orb shot from his hand with incredible speed. The lightning flew past the large shuriken, causing a shockwave that sent them spiraling into the dirt. You are not the only one who has been training Sasuke, Kakashi stated, seeing the look of surprise on his student's face. I have been working on increasing the versatility of my Chidori. That attack just now was like the Thunderbolt technique, but only more condensed. I think I'll call it Chidori Bolt. Sasuke cursed under his breath. Those shuriken were his newest addition to his roster. At this point, Kakashi had already seen all his other jutsu. His Sharingan was not helping as much as he wanted it to. His chakra was getting low, and he could tell his opponent was still getting warmed up. A whistle interrupted him. Team 7 turned to see the approaching figures of Team 8. In the head of the group was Naruto, who had seen Kakashi's last attack. Behind him was Hinata, with Shino and Kurenai bringing up the rear. Looks like you guys haven't been slacking off, Naruto grinned. Well, I see you two made it back from your mission. And with a new Hokage in tow, I hope, Kakashi said. New Hokage? Kiba asked. Yes, Sakura said, bonking Kiba on the head. Lord Thur said he was planning to retire soon. We did bring her back, thank you, Naruto replied. Though I would not exactly say it was an easy trip. Naruto caught a glimpse of Sasuke's rage-filled eyes. The Uchiha was practically begging for information, as the blonde had fought his brother. So, are you guys still working as a squad? Sakura asked. Now that they were all Chunin and Jonin, they had the choice to work separately. From what she knew, most Chunin worked in squads during bigger missions, with Jonin often going alone. Shino and I are going to continue to be in the same team for the time being, while these two are now Lord Jiraiya and Lady Tsunade's pupils, Kurenai said. The Genin's jaws dropped. Two of their peers being taught by the legendary Sannin. It was incredible. It was even more unbelievable when they revealed that Tsunade was to become the next Hokage. Yo, Sasuke. The Uchiha looked up at Naruto. His blue eyes held a blank stare. You, me, Let us fight. After you take a breather, of course." Sasuke grunted in acknowledgement, inwardly thrilled at the chance to fight Naruto. Although he didn't like him, he had come to accept that he was stronger. Perhaps he could squeeze a little information out of him, either about the fight with Itachi, or maybe copy one of his jutsu. "So, what are you guys doing here anyway, besides Naruto wanting to fight with Sasuke?" Kiba asked, picking up Akamaru. "We thought it would be best to test our skills against our friends. It has been a while since we have done any joint missions or training," Shino said, fixing his glasses. "Well, you joined us at the right time. I was hoping to test my students' skills against higher-level ninja," Kakashi remembered, pulling his book out again. "How about Hinata and Shino versus Sakura and Kiba? Since the other two want to fight." "Fine with me," Kiba exclaimed. "But first," Hinata stated, "you guys look like you could use some patching up." Hinata's hands started to emit green chakra, placing them over their wounds. The wounds slowly fused themselves back together. The soothing medical technique worked wonders. Within minutes, they were back to full strength. "So, you're Lady Tsunade's apprentice now. That means she's teaching you medical ninjutsu, right?" Sakura asked. Hinata nodded. "I just started my training, and it is taxing. The other day, I used up all my chakra within a few hours, and I had to do it 2 more times that day. It is not for the faint of heart." Sakura nodded. "Do you think she would mind taking another student?" "I don't see why not. You do have the beginnings of a good medical ninja, with your expert chakra control. Though she will need some convincing. Why? Have you any reason you want to be a medic?" Sakura shook her head. "Not any particular reason for the moment. It just seems like it could be beneficial to our team, if it stays together." Hinata nodded in understanding. She finished her treatment and walked to the other end of the field beside Shino. Sakura and Kiba stood, Akamaru wagging his tail with excitement. Kurenai and Kakashi stood on the sidelines, Sasuke sitting up in a tree, with Naruto leaning against it underneath him. Sakura nodded towards Kiba. The Inuzuka grinned, signaling to Akamaru to stay close. Sakura began weaving hand signs as the two charged towards Shino and Hinata. Shino brought his hands up, releasing his insects. Hinata dashed ahead to meet Kiba head-on. Ninja art of beast mimicry, all forest jutsu. Kiba and Akamaru began with hit-and-run tactics, a signature of the Inuzuka. Hinata weaved through their attacks, inflicting some gentle fist strikes of her own. Sakura and Shino fought using long-range techniques that flew above them. As expected, Team 8 was winning. Akamaru charged, baring his fangs. Hinata backflipped out of the way, allowing Kiba to barrel into her. The two fell to the ground, tussling around in the dirt before Hinata planted a kick in Kiba's chest. She pushed him off, the young ninja immediately returning to all fours. Hinata jumped back, wind chakra encasing shuriken she threw with deadly accuracy. Kiba slammed his hands down, a mud wall rising to stop the projectiles. Hinata reached for a sword, but was instead drilled in the back by Akamaru. Tunneling Fang! Kiba broke through his wall, spinning at high speeds, aimed for Hinata. Hinata substituted with Akamaru, making the partners slam into each other. She received a scroll from her wristband seal. The seal inside glowed from her chakra. A monstrous wave of water shot from the scroll, slamming her opponents into the trees. The water stopped, and she saw that the two had just managed to use the substitution. She spun around, Kiba midair, ready to strike her with his clawed nails. A smirk adorned his face, which quickly vanished when he felt someone slam their fist into his back. Hinata had used a burst of speed, placing her behind him, a clone coming into existence beside her. The clone ducked and landed a single finger on Akamaru's small stomach. The touch disabled his chakra network, making him fall to the dirt. Kiba growled, but stopped when Hinata held a kunai to his throat. "You have improved since our fight in the Chunin exams," Hinata said. "Likewise. All this makes me regret trying to win you over when we were in the academy," Kiba grunted. "You remember that?" Hinata asked. Kiba chuckled, picking himself up. "How could I forget? You acted so shy, and then you absolutely demolished me on graduation day. If I had known you were so strong, or that you and Naruto were together, I would have stopped a long time ago. Even if you disliked him at the time? Hey, I am a man, and a man does not interfere with another man's girl, even if you don't like the guy," Kiba explained, nursing his wounds. An explosion went off a few meters away, as Sakura threw another kunai at Shino's insect swarm. Hinata placed her hand on Kiba and Akamaru, the three of them reappearing beside their sensei in order to avoid the still ongoing battle. Water style, water bomb jutsu. Lightning style, thunderbolt jutsu. The two attacks clashed, sending sparks in every direction. In terms of long range, Shino had the upper hand, his clan specializing in the field. Sakura wasn't giving up, however. She had plenty of power herself and was able to avoid being hit by using her explosive kunai. Unfortunately, she had no way to escape and attempt a close-quarter fight. Shino was a sensory ninja, so he could always sense her location. She tried to use a smoke bomb tag to smoke out his insects, only to discover they could still find her. Water style, liquid bullets. The projectile sailed through the air. Shino dodged two of them, cutting another one with his lightning-laced kunai. He threw the blade, aimed for Sakura. She dodged and brought her hands up. Water style, water prison jutsu. A sphere sprouted around Sakura, protecting her. Shino called back his insects, aiming straight for the dome. He brought his hand up and summoned his thunder cage, now without the need of clones. The lightning fused with the water, sending multiple volts of electricity through the sphere. The prison collapsed, revealing the unconscious form of Sakura lying on the ground. Shino tilted his head to the side, an insect landing on his shoulder. He nodded and swiftly spun around, a kunai in hand. Him and Sakura stopped inches from each other. The tips of their blades shone in the sunlight. "You disguised your chakra well," Shino praised. Sakura nodded, a perk of having low chakra levels and great chakra control. The two pulled their kunai away, turning to the sound of their friends. "Impressive, both of you," Kakashi said. "It seems my students are on track to catching up with you." "Yeah, sure, Kakashi," Naruto chuckled. "These guys still have a long way, assuming we don't get stronger." "Like that's not gonna happen," Kiba grumbled. "You guys all got promoted on the first try, and were already capable of that during the academy." Sakura slapped the Inuzuka on the top of the head. "Don't put us down like that. I for one think we can at least make Chunin by the next exams." "Enough talk." Everyone turned to Sasuke, his black gaze turning Sharingan red within seconds. "You wanted to fight, Naruto? I'll give you one." Naruto blinked, waving his hand to the others, telling them to move. They swiftly returned to their spot near the tree line. "Try not to kill him, Naruto," Hinata warned, making Naruto chuckle nervously. Naruto adopted a blank expression, staring directly into Sasuke's Sharingan. Sasuke smirked, readying to place him in a genjutsu. Naruto continued to stare blankly, unflinchingly. Before he could blink, Sasuke was forced to the ground by the blonde. His eyes widened in utter shock. "How? I'm faster than you. Also, I recommend you don't try genjutsu on me." Itachi tried, and the fox inside me easily broke it. Sasuke seethed. "Is that why he was after you? The fox?" Naruto nodded, jumping back, letting the Uchiha stand. "Well, he held me in his genjutsu. The two of us had a little chat. He told me why he killed your clan. That sentence made him snap. Sasuke brought his hand to his mouth, breathing out a massive fireball. Naruto flashed away from the fire, reappearing behind the caster, sending an even more powerful flame towards him. Sasuke flipped to the side. Once he landed, Naruto was already beside him, planting a fist in his chest. Sasuke doubled over, being kneed in the chest several times before being thrown to the dirt. Do you want to know the real reason or not? Sasuke swiped his kunai at the blonde's face, attempting to give him a fourth whisker. Naruto swatted the blade out of his hand. I know the real reason. I don't need you to tell me something I already know. Naruto lifted Sasuke off the ground, punching him directly in the ribs, making Sasuke cry out in pain. Off in the distance, the others were surprised at the level of pain Naruto was dishing out. Sakura tried to run out and stop them, but Hinata put her arm out. During our mission, we learned some information that Sasuke needs to hear, but he will not listen until he has some senses knocked into him. Sakura glared at the Hyuga, but knew she was in no position to try and help her teammate. Sasuke wouldn't want it either. Back in the fight, Naruto was easily blocking strikes while continuing to speak to the angered Uchiha. This information was supposed to remain a secret, with only the Hokage and the village elders knowing about it. Luckily for me, I managed to wrestle that information out of the old man, as well as your brother. Shut up, Sasuke yelled, charging up his Chidori. This would be his last one for the day. If this attack did not hit, he would be running on fumes. Wind style. Air current dance. Naruto sent blasts of air from his palms, each one striking Sasuke in the chest, eventually making him lose control of his jutsu. The lightning fizzled out. Sasuke tumbled over, forcing himself back to his feet. Naruto stood behind him, ready to deliver another wind-powered attack. Ready to talk now? Sasuke growled and threw a shuriken, the blonde easily catching it. He jumped forward, engaging in taijutsu. Naruto continued to stare directly into his Sharingan, taunting him to use his Kekkei Genkai. Sasuke's eyes were barely keeping up with his speed. He was unable to copy any of Naruto's techniques as he was using shortened hand signs, and Genjutsu was not going to work on him. If you do not comply, I will take us to a place where we can talk, privately, Naruto said. He dodged another punch, and placed his hand on Sasuke's face. Sasuke gasped as his mind was sucked in for the second time in his life. Sasuke opened his eyes to the sight of an endless expanse of grassland. Behind him stood the large tree with its ceiling tag swaying in the wind. Sasuke still remembered his last visit here, the sight of a massive paw coming down on him, still waking him at night. He frantically looked around, expecting the dense amount of ki to show up any second. It never came. Don't worry, Naruto's voice called out from within the canopy. Kurama's taking the day off hunting. Sasuke stepped back as Naruto landed gracefully in front of him, standing up to his full height. For once, the Uchiha realized how tall Naruto was. With his Sharingan, he determined that Naruto was 5'10", while he was still 5'6", 4 inches, while he had grown none in the past few months since their graduation. Naruto looked down at Sasuke. He walked past him and stretched his arm out. The sound of wings caused Sasuke to peer into the infinite expanse. Moments later, a crow landed on Naruto's arms. Sasuke hesitantly walked forward, inspecting the bird. When Itachi used his genjutsu on me, we had a little chat. Before he left, I allowed him to implant something into my mind. A genjutsu that I can enable and disable at will. Your brother told me to show you this, and he hopes it will erase any doubts in you. Doubts about what? Sasuke asked. You'll see, was Naruto's response, before placing his hand on the crow's head. Chakra swirled around the crow as it hopped off his arm. The crow transformed into the form of Itachi Uchiha. His Akatsuki cloak swayed from the breeze that was conjured from the transformation. Sasuke jumped back as his older brother opened his black eyes. He glanced to either side. "This is your mindscape, Naruto?" "Yes," the blonde said. "I thought you just gave me a genjutsu, so how come you are aware of our location?" Itachi looked at his palm, examining it. "This is a projection of my body. I implanted a portion of my chakra into your mind." "Let me guess," Naruto stopped him. "You did it this way so you could talk to Sasuke better." "Correct," Itachi nodded. "You!" Itachi turned to his younger brother. The boy charged at him, swinging his arms through his body. But since he was a being of chakra, only Naruto could touch him, as it was his mindscape. Naruto sighed and pointed to the enraged Uchiha. Metal chains erupted from beneath them, wrapping themselves around Sasuke's body, dragging him to his knees. "How about you listen to your brother? I'm not saying you have to suddenly have a change of heart. Just cool your head and listen." Naruto nodded to Itachi, walking off, giving the brothers some privacy. He vanished from view, jumping into Kurama's tree. Itachi turned back to his brother. His eyes softened at the sight of his brother's tear-filled Sharingan. He held back his own emotions and advanced towards Sasuke. His Mangekyo Sharingan flared to life. "I am sorry to do this again, Sasuke. But this will be easier to explain by doing this." Sasuke snapped his eyes shut, not daring to look into those eyes. Sasuke opened his again to see a world of black and white with blood-red skies. "No, not this again," he shouted. "Itachi, just promise me this. Take care of Sasuke." Sasuke looked to see his father and mother sitting in the same spot he had seen their corpses on the day of his clan's massacre. Behind them stood Itachi in his Anbu gear, his katana in hand, tears rolling down his face. "I will. Do not fear. This is the path you have chosen. Compared to you, our pain will be over in an instant. Even if our philosophies differ, I am proud of you. You truly are a kind child." Itachi trembled before bringing his blade down upon his parents. Sasuke stared blankly through watered eyes. The scenery changed, Itachi kneeling before the third Hokage. "My only request is that you take care of Sasuke for me." Hiruzen nodded. "Of course. Although I wish there was another way to prevent your clan's coup d'etat. Your actions will never be forgotten. Because of you, the Leaf Village will be safe for the time being. What do you plan to do now?" Itachi stood. "I plan to join the Akatsuki, supply information to the village when I can. That will be dangerous. It is a shame your actions require you to become a rogue shinobi. Even so, I wish you the best, Itachi." Itachi bowed once again, flashing away from view. "What is this?" Sasuke asked, once again trying to escape his shackles. "This is the truth, Sasuke. This is the reason I killed our clan. They were planning a coup d'etat, and I was against it. If the likes of Danzo had not interfered, another alternative might have been reached. But the only way I would go along with this was if you were kept safe. The Hokage assured me of this." "Then why?" Sasuke growled. "If this is the reason, why didn't you tell me?" "At the time I thought you were too young, or that your rage would cloud your judgment. I decided to tell you this now because of how Naruto described you." "What would that loser know anything about?" Itachi picked up Sasuke by the collar. This is exactly what he was talking about. "You have a superiority complex towards everyone but me. Naruto tells me that you have willingly disobeyed orders, separated yourself from your peers, all to get your revenge on me. Why shouldn't I kill you? You murdered my clan, even if it was to protect the village. I am an avenger. I will kill you if it's the last thing I do, Sasuke spat in his brother's face. Itachi dropped him. I am dying, Sasuke. The young Uchiha paused his rage, looking up to the man he had hated more than anyone. I have a deadly illness. I will most likely die from it within the next few years. Before that happens, I want you to kill me. Sasuke froze in utter confusion. What are you saying? I left you alive because I loved you too much. I want you to grow and become a strong ninja and rekindle our clan within the Hidden Leaf. But I don't want you to throw away everything else in your journey for revenge. Have friends, make a family. Sasuke stood up, breathing heavily. Itachi deactivated his Sharingan, the two returning to the lush grassland. I do not expect you to change your decision overnight. Just remember everything I have told you today. If you need to, talk with Naruto, or Kakashi, or even Lord Third. Only Naruto out of those three currently knows I am speaking to you, but I assume he will tell them after this encounter. Itachi! The two Uchiha turned to the voice of Naruto. I would like us to get back soon before too much time passes. And I am certain your Akatsuki friends have work to do. Itachi nodded. He turned back to Sasuke, staring directly into his three-tomoed Sharingan. A single tear fell from his cheek before his form dissipated into that of a crow. The crow flew off, leaving Sasuke behind to ponder. He really loves you, you know, Naruto said. Like he said, I will be telling the Third and Kakashi I know the truth. Talk to any of us if you wish. You believe him? I do, Naruto said. Kurama gives me the power to detect lies, no matter how good at it they are. I trust in that ability, and I know Itachi is not lying. Now, I will give you 10 seconds to decide if you want to continue our fight. Naruto severed the mind link, instantly jumping away from Sasuke. He found there to be no need, as Sasuke slumped to the ground, his dark eyes glassed over. Naruto relaxed his stance, turning to see the Uchiha squad running over to check him. Sakura looked into his soulless eyes. What did you do to him? She asked worriedly. The same thing I did during the Chunin exams. I had some information for him that is confidential. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruto gave them a look, saying not to ask, and that he would be briefed later. He will be fine. He's just overwhelmed by the information I gave him. I suggest that he get some rest. Kiba groaned. Alright, me and Sakura will take him home. See you guys later. Kiba and Sakura slung his arm over their shoulders, leaving the training ground in the direction of Sasuke's house. The rest of Team 8 joined Kakashi and Naruto. Kunai stayed silent with Shino as Hinata punched her boyfriend in the arm. I thought we decided to keep that between us. Naruto nursed his arm, a sheepish smile on his face. Come on, he deserved to know the truth. Can you really blame me? Besides, I was going to tell him eventually, and this seemed like the right time to. Gives him something to think about. Kunai deadpanned, deciding not to question the young Special Jonin's judgment. She did not know what this information was, and probably didn't want to. Shino was thinking along similar lines, feeling it best to change the subject. I suggest we finish up here. I am sure Kakashi would like to see his student. Kakashi nodded, turning to Naruto. Naruto turned the gesture and placed his hand on the silver-haired Jonin. The two vanished in a cloud of leaves. Hinata sighed. Of course, Naruto's gonna break the news. No matter how much he matures, he will always be like that. I assume that is why you fell in love with him, Shino commented. Hinata's cheeks reddened. One of the reasons, I guess. Kurenai giggled. To be young and in love, it really is something. Hinata huffed. Well, I'm not the only one in love, you know. How have you and Asuma been doing? Kurenai stuttered, her own cheeks turning beet red. You know about that? It has been rather obvious. You too, Shino? The Aburame shrugged. I think we can all say that there is someone we each possess feelings for. This time it was Hinata's turn to giggle. That's right, you've a thing for Fu, right? Shino remained silent, his face covered by his high-collared neck. But his red cheeks were clearly noticed thanks to Hinata's Byakugan. He was barely able to hold his stoic demeanor as the two women began to pester him. Why did I have to bring this up? Hokage's office. Naruto finished his report on Itachi's true motives to Tsunade, Hiruzen, Jiraiya, and Kakashi. To say that everyone was in shock would be an understatement. The third Hokage had known this all along, and was somewhat happy that Naruto had forced him to give up the information. Now the worst thing he had done in his career was finally being brought to light. Are you sure it was wise to give this information to Sasuke? Tsunade asked, testing out the Hokage chair. Naruto shrugged. Maybe not, but he deserved to know the truth, and I thought Itachi telling him himself would be the best way to do it. This info will definitely change Sasuke's choices from here on. For better or for worse, he has a decision to make. Continue his quest for vengeance, or try living a life his brother wanted for him. Tsunade groaned, but accepted that Naruto's words had truth in them. Kakashi closed his eye, the memories of his time in the Yonbu with the young Itachi rushing back. Although he didn't know him as well as he should, he had suspicions that Itachi had other motives for his actions. Hiruzen was in his own mind right now, not wanting to see the faces of his friends and students. Although happy the truth was being revealed, the pain of ordering the deaths of innocents and shinobi alike was too much for him. Even more reason to hand the hat to another. We also have another important matter to discuss, Jiraiya chimed in, not wanting to dwell on this any further. Kabuto was still being interrogated by Ibiki, and has yet to give us any information. Expected of Orochimaru's right hand. No amount of interrogation will break him. Naruto shook his head. Even with me and Kurama's mind meld, I doubt it would do any better. Tsunade groaned. Torture is leading us nowhere. Have him placed in the prison and put under constant surveillance. Orochimaru will likely come back for him. The group nodded. Kakashi lifted his head. Might I suggest placing a Hiraishin marker on him? That should give Naruto the ability to find him if he escapes. Naruto shook his head. No can do. I placed one on both him and Orochimaru. But once the snake vanished, I lost my marker. His bases must have some layer of protection against sensory techniques. Besides, I may be good with the flying Raijin, but the distance I can sense one is still rather limited. I would say here to halfway to the hidden sand village is the farthest I can sense. In that case, there is very little we can do for the moment. But perhaps that is a good thing for the time being, Hiruzen said. Your coronation will be in 4 days. That gives us time to get everything sorted, he said towards Tsunade. She agreed. That will be all, Kakashi, Naruto. The two left, each heading their separate ways. Tsunade turned in her chair and looked out the window overlooking the village. Kabuto was being held here, possibly putting them in danger of Orochimaru again. On top of that, the only remaining Uchiha was wavering in his loyalty, and she was to become Hokage soon. I can see why you want to step down, Sensei. This already is tiring, and I haven't even started doing paperwork. As she said that, Shizune walked through the door, a stack of paperwork in her arms. Hiruzen could not help but chuckle evilly. Lady Tsunade, I have formal papers you need to sign. Everyone present shielded themselves when Tsunade slammed her fist against the wall, creating a web-like pattern along the wall. I hate paperwork. Naruto and Hinata's apartment. Naruto toyed with the crystal necklace Tsunade had given him on their way back to the village. So far, he had yet to figure out how it worked. He knew that it used to belong to the first Hokage, but didn't know how to use its Jinchuriki containment power. He theorized it was likely linked to wood style, effectively making it useless other than wearing it. Do you really need to know how it works, Naruto? His girlfriend asked, preparing dinner. Just as a precaution, we never know if there is something that could make me lose control over Kurama's chakra. Plus, if I learn to use it, I could potentially use it on other Jinchuriki if necessary. Hinata placed her meal on the table, the two digging in as Naruto stared at the crystal. Hinata noticed his stare begin to waver, believing he had other things on his mind. He was trying not to think about something else, and instead focus on the crystal. What's on your mind? Sasuke. Hinata tilted her head, her dark blue hair falling in front of her face. Before meeting Itachi, you didn't even bat an eye at him. Has he become more important because of that? She asked, fixing her hair. His brother is part of the Akatsuki. That is a big deal. Secondly, the two of us have similar experiences in terms of loss. I knew that all along, but considered him too arrogant to worry about. But now, I guess he has given me a lot to deal with. Are you worried he will decide to go against Itachi's wishes? Hinata asked, taking their plates. The chances of that are high, but I'm not worried about that for the moment. I have no clue why, but I just feel like he will play an important part in our village's future. Being an Uchiha only strengthens that belief. Hinata looked at him with an all-too-familiar look. It was the, "Are you going to have to get some sense knocked into you?" look. Naruto grinned sheepishly. I know, I'm sounding weird. Just forget about it. For now, all I can do is wait for his decision. No point worrying about something beyond your control. We have a long day of training tomorrow. Better get to bed. Hinata sighed. No point trying to get her boyfriend to talk when he mentioned training. That was going to be the one thing he had on his mind all night. Naruto was a simple guy. Once he set his mind on something, it was all he would think about. This instinct became even more prevalent regarding missions and training. The young Hyuga giggled. Perhaps she could change that. Naruto was an amazing partner, but was sometimes lacking in the romantic department. He was an introvert at heart due to his need to hide himself in the past, and so he was a little nervous to get close to Hinata. His extroverted personality was more of a mask at times. Although also being introverted in nature, she had always felt comfortable being close to Naruto. Sure, they shared simple displays of affection, but had never truly gone past that. They were comfortable with their current relationship, but Hinata was slowly growing a want for more. Naruto plopped onto the bed, a long sigh escaping his lips, his mind already creating a schedule for his training tomorrow. He wanted to work on the kinks in Hell's Fire Dash, next continue working on his Hiraishin seal. Lastly, he wanted to start experimenting with something Jiraiya had told him about his father's plans for the Rasengan. His musing was interrupted when he felt Hinata lay down on top of him. You should consider getting a new hairstyle, she whispered, smiling as she felt their hearts begin to beat quicker. What would you suggest? The blonde asked, stroking Hinata's hair slowly. You could try your father's. Then again, it would probably be a bad idea for the time being. Oh, how about Kakashi's style? Naruto chuckled. Yeah, no thanks. Way too over the top. Maybe I'll try growing it out. Bring it down to my shoulders. Would you let me try braiding it or something if you did? Naruto stopped stroking her hair and placed his hand around her waist. I will, if you tell me why you're trying to seduce me. Hinata smiled nervously. Because we never really do things like this. I'm not saying we have to go fast, but we have been together 4.5 years. True. Are you mad at me? Hinata asked, reverting to her timid voice from long ago. Naruto sat up, bringing the Hyuga with him, the two staring directly into each other's eyes. Of course not. But you did say you wanted a little more in our relationship. And you did say you were trying to seduce me, so... Naruto pulled Hinata's head closer, their lips coming into direct contact. For the first time in their life, they shared a kiss. Hinata's eyes felt like they were going to pop out of her skull. Her face was beet red, and her heart was going crazy. Yet Naruto felt so calm as the two continued to press their lips together. Hinata closed her eyes and engaged further into the kiss. His mind was on autopilot, the urge to kiss his girlfriend springing seemingly out of nowhere. He should have been freaking out. Instead, he felt calmer than he had ever been before. He had imagined doing this for a long time, but never felt that it was the right time, or if Hinata wanted to wait for a specific moment. But from her reaction, he felt confident to continue the kiss. The two broke away, breathing out heavily. They held on to one another as they caught their breath, passionately looking into each other's eyes. "I think it is safe to say your seduction worked," Naruto said, planting kisses on Hinata's cheek. "I guess so." They rejoined their lips, passionately continuing their makeout session. From within Naruto's mind, Kurama was in conflict. He had zero clue what to do in this situation. He didn't know whether he wanted to continue observing this moment, or if he wanted to forget it ever happened. He had been in similar situations with his past hosts, Mito and Kushina Uzumaki, and their partners. Being a male himself, it was even more strange then. But now that he was within a male host, the answers still did not come to him. He decided to retreat into his own mind, forcing himself into sleep, deciding that human mating rituals was not something he wanted to be a part of. Naruto and Hinata kissed far into the night, not once moving away from each other. If love was visible, the entire hidden leaf would have been engulfed by the love from the two teens. It was quite possible that no other love in history was as strong. Unbeknownst to them, outside their home, trouble was brewing. From within one of his many secret bases, Orochimaru sat within his chair, deep in thought. The time was almost near for him to select a new host body. And at this point, Sasuke was unfortunately becoming a less likely candidate. Even so, the Uchiha Kekkei Genkai would not be lost. Orochimaru was determined to take his body, even if he had to wait a few more years. He also had the problem of Kabuto being imprisoned, but that could be easily dealt with. The rogue Snake Sanin licked his lips, standing up and entering the room next door. Inside, a group of 4 sound ninjas stood at the ready. "I have a task for you. Break Kabuto out of prison, and bring me Sasuke Uchiha." If you like what you just heard, consider hitting the subscribe button and bell icon to get notified about new videos. If there's a part you've missed, then check out the entire playlist on screen. If you like this story, please share it with your fellow anime lovers. Any support helps a lot. That's all for now. This is Ninja Kai, disappearing in a golden flash.